Welcome and greetings to everyone on behalf of the founders of the Universal Peace Federation and the Washington Times Foundation. Thank you for participating in today's IMAP webinar. The International Media Association for Peace recognizes the vital role that journalists play in guarding against totalitarianism and supporting the expansion of freedom. IMAP represents a worldwide professional network of journalists whose support is socially responsible and moral media to convey accurate content, address the challenges of our times based on the highest principles of ethical journalism, and understanding that universal values are key elements of a world of peace. On today's webinar, we'll be discussing the topic, media civility, independence, and integrity. The role of media and its responsibility to promote fairness in the global marketplace of ideals will be examined. What can be done to ensure that reporting is fair and unbiased? How can the media help citizens from different religious and political grounds work towards mutual understanding instead of seeking to polarize? Our host, Peggy Yujiri, will moderate a stimulating discussion between veteran journalist Dr. Ester Davis, a reporter for the Dallas Post Tribune, and host and producer of the Ester Davis Show, along with Carol Martindale, editor-in-chief of National Publishing, the leading publishing and media house in Barbados, and Laura Hornbeck, the Global Women's Peace Network Media Liaison. Our hostess, Peggy Yujiri, lives in Denver area with her husband, Kenji. They have 3 grown children. She serves as the executive director of the Universal Peace Federation of Colorado. Peggy has had over 40 years of experience in organizing and promoting interfaith events in the US and internationally. Please help me welcome Peggy with a warm round of applause. Peggy? You're muted, Peggy. You have to unmute.
Okay. Thank you, Hans.
You're welcome.
Okay, and welcome, everyone. I'm glad you could join us today. I think we're going to have a very interesting discussion. We have some true veteran journalists with us today. I'm going to start off by introducing our first speaker, Carol Martindale. Carol leads the editorial department of The Nation Publishing Company Limited, where she's a veteran of 35 years. She was only 18 years old when she started as a trainee reporter, and she served as executive editor, managing editor, Sunday Sun editor, Weekend Nation editor, online editor, and news editor, and now serves as editor-in-chief. Carol has her BA in journalism from Ryerson University in Toronto, Canada, and her MA in Communications Policy from City University in London. She also has a certificate in online journalism from the University of the West Indies. She's received a number of professional awards, including the Pan American Health Organization Barbados Award, the Pan American Health Organization Certificate of Merit Award, and the United Nations Population Fund Caribbean Award, as well as many more. As editor-in-chief, Carol is responsible for charting a new course for an integrated newsroom comprising print, digital, and radio news. Please join me in welcoming Carol Martindale.
Thank you so much, Peggy. Thanks to everyone on the panel. I hope you can hear me because I had some challenges before. I'm good?
Yes.
Good.
Perfect. Perfect. I'm so happy about that because I started to panic a little bit. But I had my trusted IT team member next to me, so he was trying to help me. So I'm actually using my phone. So forgive me. I'm not on my computer where I'm most comfortable. So thanks a lot to everybody, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this esteemed panel. I know I have 10 to 12 minutes, so I'm going to try to keep my points as concise as possible. I thought long and hard about the topics, and I looked at them and I kind of broke them down. I wanted to make sure that I touched each and every aspect that is posed in the in the questions for us to discuss here. And I pondered the fact that journalism has changed so much from the time when I entered at 18. And please do not try to do the math. Don't do the math. But at the time, there was no social media. I figure that's the same for most of us on the panel. So there was no social media. There's no cell phones, no competition from digital media, new media. Things are so different now. I mean, we all could attest to how much things have changed. But while the media landscape has changed, I truly believe, particularly as somebody still practicing journalism, that the basic tenets of this profession have not changed. Our role remains the same. We are here to educate, to inform the public, to help put issues out there into perspective. And we all know that there's so many issues that come up every single day. And we're here to help shape thoughts. We're here to help provoke debate as well. Be inclusive while giving a voice to the voiceless, those who are not really heard. Journalists must be fair and unbiased, although we know we all bring our own personal biases to a situation or stories. But when we are writing, we should be free from bias. We must be credible, and our integrity must always remain intact. There's so much happening in the world today that our various publics really depend on us to make sure we get it right. If we look at even COVID-19, the pandemic that we're now past, even though there is still COVID-19, the virus around, so many people would have relied on us as credible media, whether it's newspaper, radio, doesn't matter. But mainstream media, I find certainly here in Barbados, our people depended on the traditional media to give them information. And the crazy but interesting thing about COVID-19 was that we were all, no matter where in the world you are, we were all dealing with the same thing all at the same time. COVID didn't choose Barbados and not Denver, or it didn't choose London and not Russia. Everybody was dealing with this pandemic all at the same time. And the truth of it is, because it was new, and we know that our research tells us and history tells us that when there is a crisis, in this case, it was a pandemic, whenever there is a crisis, our readers, our public look or tend to look to traditional media to help them sort through the maze, sort through the mounds of information that's coming at them at warp speed. And I believe our role is to help sort that mess out for people. Everyone also has a voice. Gone are those days when readers just wrote letters. So for example, at my newspaper, at The Nation, we have a letters to the editor column. I don't know if it's happening, if you guys have seen it in other parts, but everyone now kind of resorts to social media to vent. Everybody has a voice. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody is an expert on everything, including being a journalist. What you should write, what you shouldn't write, what you should put in, who you should talk to. It's just the craziest thing. But it's also a good thing, because more people feel invested and they want to talk and they want to share. But guys, we don't lose sight of our role, even with all of that happening. So at our newspapers, we don't get as many letters as we used to. We still get some, but we welcome the debate. We welcome the different voices, because also sometimes they do cause pause for pause, and makes us as journalists as well say, oh, well, that's an interesting point. We didn't explore that angle. So that's how everything has changed. And of course, people do, they want to be heard. So what that has meant for us as journalists is that part of our role has changed in a sense. Not the role, but perhaps how we do some of the things we do. And it also makes us be aware of how important it is for us to be trained and experienced enough and knowledgeable enough to really show our public what is going on and to help them. Because sometimes people are reading more than perhaps we are, and perhaps have a lot more access to information than sometimes we do. Because when we're doing a story, we are looking at a particular area. Whereas somebody out there who's just really interested in a particular topic, they're pulling information, kind of like, I don't know, artificial intelligence or something, but pulling information from all different sources. So you'll find sometimes people can actually challenge journalists on what they're writing. And that's not a bad thing either, because it has to keep us on our toes. The part that I'm going to focus a little bit on, what can be done to ensure reporting is fair and unbiased. And I've written just a couple bullet points for us to think about and ponder and perhaps discuss. We must constantly ensure that we do not drop our standards. It's really easy to do that in anything we do. And when you're competing against social media, that's fast. Everything is fast. We want to be the first out with breaking news and get it out there, but we have to be accurate. So we don't want to sacrifice accuracy and balanced stories and fair stories to be quick and for haste. So we have to make sure we don't drop our standards. We must also make sure that we hire good talent. Again, I can speak to my own experiences here at the Nation. I've been here for, as Peggy said, more than 35 years. I'm like a dinosaur. That's the reality. I don't think that I will find people here in Barbados, and I believe I could speak for a global perspective. However, I'll speak about Barbados. I don't believe that I'm going to find people entering journalism and staying for 35 years. I think that's all gone. I don't believe that's going to happen. I have had someone who just resigned, and they were only here for, I want to say, about 7 months, didn't make it a year, because the grind of this profession also, she realized, and she's 21, and she said, this is not for me. This is not for me. The long hours, the grind, the running from this to that, it's not for her. So I somehow think we're not going to find people who are staying as long as perhaps we have. What I do think, though, and what I do look for is good talent. So even if I don't stress the time, I stress the quality, so that then I think we have to focus a lot more on hiring good talent, fit for purpose. We have to strive to get the best people who are passionate about the profession and about helping people, because at the end of the day, it really comes down to helping people. We also have to stress training and exposure for our journalists as well, because it helps us with perspective. It also helps us to break down and understand information and issues. I can't speak to someone about the IMF and what they're doing if I myself don't understand the IMF and the reasons for the IMF and what's happening financially in our country. I will never sit and pretend that I am a big guru when it comes to financial matters, but I do know that I need people who can break that down for our readers. And the only way we can do that successfully is if we have people who are trained in that area and trained to understand the issues and the topics and can handle the subject matters, and therefore speak and educate and inform our public. So we must understand the issues. We have to also recognize too that we all, and I mentioned it previously, we all come with various biases, but I do know with stories it's not about what you believe, because you're not writing for yourself. You are writing to educate and inform. So you have to more or less park your biases or your bias and write the story in a fair, balanced, and credible way. If I look at the second part, and I'm conscious of the time, so I'm moving very quickly. So I've dealt with the reporting. How do we ensure that reporting is fair and unbiased? I'm sorry. How then can the media help citizens from different religions and political backgrounds work towards a mutual understanding? Let me share a real experience with you. It happened just as recently as less than 2 years ago. This is just for context. In Barbados, some of you may or may not know, Barbados was once called Little England. We're now a republic. That's a first. That's more or less history in the making for us. And we would have cut ties with England and the monarchy in November 2021. So that was a major deal for our country, which would have gained its independence in 1966. That's when the Charter of Barbados was introduced. That's from 2021 when we became a republic. So with the becoming of a republic came a new charter. There was then a Republican status, I'm trying to get it right, Republican Status Transition Advisory Committee, which was responsible for formulating the charter. The intention and the objective of that document was to acknowledge that all beings were equal in the eyes of the Creator. There was a member of the Senate. He's a priest himself, Anglican priest. And Barbados, let me also say, Barbados is a very religious society, very Christian. He said, Barbados is a multi-faith society, and rather than putting a term that belongs to any particular religion, we put a term that could be assessed by all religions. It was then deemed that the word creator be utilized, replacing the word God, as it can be accessed by all. Accessed by all. Some people obviously had a different view. Remember I said, for context, Barbados is a very religious society, it being Christian. There was a lot of objection to the document because for many, the word creator was replacing God, which most of us acknowledge as the person we pray to in Barbados. There's a group called the Family Faith Freedom Group. There was a lot of pushback from the group. They objected vehemently and countered with the statement, we need God under a Barbados Republic. The main argument and objection was based on the fact that the charter without justification removes the common, long-held, resolute, and existing belief in the sovereignty of God or Creator as enshrined in the Charter of Barbados in 1966. So where did the media sit with this issue? And again, this was a major issue for Barbados. Went on for months and months and months. Now, the role of the media in that scenario was not to side with the group, the transitionary committee, nor was it to side, its role was to side with the people who were against the replacing of God, the word God. Our role in that scenario was to report on from both sides, and all other people who gave pushback, all those who were in favor, all those who were not for it. And it was fast and furious in terms of information coming to us. It was one that we had to check ourselves as individuals and as media houses. Of course, you know, the editorial is the stance of the newspaper. So we had to even be very careful in our editorial writing, because whereas I am Christian and I do pray to God, who makes me right? Why am I, as a journalist or as editor-in-chief, why would I mandate my company or my team of editors to only report on the group that gave the pushback to being replaced, the word creator being replacing God? That's not my role. And the role of the media is to bring all of the views together, because we also have to recognize our public is more discerning than ever before. We have people are capable of independent thought. They can discern and they will make their choices for themselves. We didn't have to push anything down anybody's throat, nor did it mean that we, because of our own biases, sit and tell the public through our writings, and we can be very smart with, because we're wordsmiths, so we can be very smart in how we write. You can also get some editorializing in copy, especially news copy, not columns, that if you're not careful, it can steer your public in a particular direction. And I'm not talking about columnists, because I'm a columnist and I get it. I'm talking about news writers, and we need to be careful. We needed to be careful with this issue. It's a sensitive issue. We have a thing in Barbados, you don't talk about cricket. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the game cricket. You don't talk about cricket and you don't talk about religion, because it always ends in a big debate and confusion and everything. But we had to recognize that our role as journalists was not to side with any particular group. It really was to bring the facts. And I'll say very quickly before closing, we also have a similar thing with the political aspect of it as well. You may or may not know that in Barbados, we do not have an official opposition at this time. We have for two consecutive elections, our ruling Barbados Labour Party has won all 30 seats, constituencies is what we call them, hands down. And it really puts the media in a position where it has become, or was forced to be, the unofficial opposition. Because imagine a scenario where you have a government and a party rather controlling all 30 seats of in a constituency. There's no official opposition. There is a pressure that is put on journalists and the media to make sure, and we are an independent media, I should say, so we don't get subventions, we don't from anyone, and the onus and the responsibility is on us to make sure to represent the people of this country, not a party, not a political group down here. We have to represent the people. And in so doing, we have to be very, very, always find the different angles. We always have to find the different sources. We also have to bring that balance to a story and not be so one.
Uh-oh. Well, I think we lost her for a moment. Well, thank you, Carol, for those were some very interesting comments. And,
thank you. I was more or less at the end, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
But thank you so much. I hope I was able to deal with the issue in the 10 to 12 minutes, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That you really added a lot to the discussion there. And you know, your explanation of how you interact with government and how you navigate that, what could be a landmine. That's very, very interesting. And your emphasis on training, you know, training journalists. And I think right now, one of the challenges is that because print news has become so, it has shrunken so much, and as far as the budgets are also shrunken. And so it's harder and harder to hire those people and to train them, because you have to figure out what your financial model is going to be, you know. So anyway, thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll have some questions for you later on. But right now I want to introduce our second speaker, which is Dr. Ester Davis. Dr. Davis is an award-winning talk show host, writer, speaker, and published author, currently working in the Dallas area. She's an alum of Texas Southern University and has a broad range of experience in media, having worked as a news writer, movie script writer, news host, assignment editor, contract writer, guest columnist, reporter, and producer. She's the ongoing host producer of the Ester Davis Show on PAX TV. Ester is a widow, a mother, and a grandmother. And in 2017, she earned her doctorate in religious studies from Grace International Seminary. I'm telling you, between these two women, you've got more experience and wisdom than Walter Cronkite and Barbara Walters rolled into one. So please join me in welcoming up Dr. Ester Davis.
Thank you. Thank you so very kindly. Am I being heard?
Yes, we hear you. Mhm.
Thank you for that warm introduction. I do appreciate everything. I appreciate the opportunity to be before you, and I really enjoyed the last speaker immensely. I am in the Texas area, but I chose to answer questions, which I think will probably give you a better scope, and I can get more to the point because I have such a wide background. I'll tell you up front, I'm a script writer, which was probably one of the greatest careers I could ever have in the movie world because I retired from the Eastman Kodak Company. And then we have all of these other mediums that are in front of us right now. So I will welcome the questions.
Yes, okay, we're going to have an interview style here.
Yes.
So the first question, Esther, is you've worked for decades in TV, radio, and print news. What do you see as the biggest obstacle in today's media world to fair and unbiased news?
I think our biggest obstacle is trust and having trust in the media. Someone just mentioned Walter Cronkite. And I can remember the media always pointing to him as that 5:30 News had one of the largest audiences in the world at that time. So I think our biggest obstacle is, do you trust the source that you're getting the information from? I have chosen over the years to stay in community because I spent 8 years with PAX TV as director of community affairs. And at that time, we had a very devout Christian. His name was Bud Paxson. He had some 62 stations across the United States. And he was a trusted source, but he also hired other people that he trusted with the media. It was a great, great combination. And the one thing I learned from that was that here's an owner that knows who the reporters are on a first name basis. I could pick up the phone and call him. He lived down in Key West, Florida. So those are the two things that I think are the most paramount issues in media today.
Thank you, Esther. My second question is, can you give us an example of something you've done in your media career to help promote greater understanding and cooperation between races?
Oh, Peggy, that's a loaded question. Oh, wow. Over the years, yes, I have done a couple of things. Some people would call them stunts. Two of them come to mind right away. I was chair of senior affairs, and my public life in what commissions and boards prepared me and really engaged me in things that were happening in the community, if that makes sense. So I can remember as chair of senior affairs for the city of Dallas, I needed transportation for seniors in certain zip codes to move to Parkland Hospital, which is our county hospital here. And of course, they didn't give me the budget that I wanted. So long story short, I actually got all of the communities together, the Jewish women, the Latino women, the African groups, because Texas is diversified, extremely diversified. So we get all of these groups together and we actually packed City Hall because I knew at Dallas City Hall, they take all of their city council meetings. And since we have 28 cities in Dallas County, I knew those other counties were going to pick up the media. So I wanted 300,000, the mayor only wanted to give me 75,000. And our senior population was growing very, I mean, just really growing heavily. The numbers revealed what we needed here. So that was one thing that affected not only our 28 city county area, but down in Dallas, I mean, Texas has 245 counties. So it became a real issue. Other mayors had to change their budgets for seniors. So what we don't understand, which is my opinion, we don't understand how powerful media is if there's a trusted source. And when you put things out there, be able to back it up, have all of your facts. And I'll throw this in. I think social media is really a party line. A lot of the audiences may not be or remember or know we used to have party lines in this country. That means you were on one line and somebody else in that community could possibly had to use the same line. So, but that is not a credible journalistic source. It's simply, in my opinion, because if you look at the stats, what we have become, we still go to Google, we still go to a credible source to verify what has been said. Plus, it's taking a lot of turns right now because it's brand new, but I'm really curious to know how it's going to jail. What is going to be the jail effect of social media? One of the papers that I write for here is the Dallas Post Tribune. That paper is 75 years old, which means it's been in 4 generations for the last 75 years. The second thing, to answer your question, that I have done, I listen to what people say. Our communities have changed in Texas, and the communities make up the voters, and the communities make up our schools. So I stay really, really close to the communities. I'll give you a great example. In a little city that we have south of where I am, I live in the city of Dallas, called DeSoto. DeSoto has a population of a couple of 100,000 people, but they have 28 homeowners associations, Peggy. 28. That's a whole lot for a little town. So what is the first thing we do when we move into a community? We form a homeowners meeting, or we form a deeds restriction service. And what is the third thing we do when we move into a neighborhood? We find out where the schools are, the police department, and believe it or not, the local swimming pool, because we're in Texas. So I think to keep my mind on your question is that stay closer to the communities and know who your neighbors are.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Otherwise, how do you know what their needs are?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, Esther, here's my next question. A new 2023 American Bar Association survey of civic literacy released on April 27th revealed that 85% of Americans feel that civility in today's society is worse than it was 10 years ago. And the majority, 53%, blame social media and the media in general. What can the media do to reverse this trend?
Let me start with the word civility. I think we have some misinterpretations of what civility is. And civility has the word citizen in it, citizenship, positive cultures. We have civil rights. And in our civil rights, we have these guarantees. What can the media do? We can stay on point. We can actually talk to our audiences about what is important. And then, which brings up another big hot button of mine. We stopped teaching we stopped teaching government in our schools. I mean, in my school, I can cite to you the Constitution. I can cite the Civil Rights Bill. I know because we learned it in school. We studied the entire World War II in high school. So what can we do? We can balance what we read. We can question what we read. A lot of times we'll share information that we did not fully understand. I give you a case in point. I have a really disdainment against polls, because polls they'll just show up. There, if you can slip through all of the channels, you can go through your cell phone and there is a poll. You just mentioned 85% of and 53% of people. Where did that come from? Who paid for that poll? What people were behind it? The only thing we get in a poll, Peggy, is the name of it. But I think we need to know the source of it. For instance, how much did you pay for that? What entities would you involve in that poll? I'll use Dallas. We have about, I don't know, a little over 100 zip codes. And we're actually separated by what they call the Trinity River. The lady from Barbados gave us a sense of what that is. So in Dallas, you have the north side of Dallas and you have the south side. And right through the center of Dallas, Texas is a Trinity River, a God-made river. But when we get a poll, I want to know who initiated the poll. And it's a simple thing to do. It's not labor intensive. We can actually put on that poll the source of it. And then you can look it up. But at the moment, it's like taking information and running with it without any familiarity with what it is. But if we go back to a part of your question, we have civility is about the citizens. It's not about the corporations. I firmly believe in the Constitution, we the people. It's not we the corporations, or we the millionaires, or we the billionaires. It's we the people. And the people have just gotten a little confused because we need to go back to teaching government in schools. Now, we're picking up pieces of it right now because these mass killings have put our young people on notice. They know something is wrong. They know something is wrong with these mass killings. They don't exactly know what it is, but they're acting on their gut feel. Their gut is, why are my friends being killed? That's in a movie. That's in the other social medias, but it doesn't happen in my neighborhood. So what I think we need to do, can we just go back to basics? Can we start with our educational system? Can we ask for things as a people? Where did the poll come from? I will speak at city council. I'll speak and they give me 3 minutes. And if I go over 3 minutes, they just sort of buzz me down. But where did it come from? Who paid for it? Those are key components. And thank you for the question, by the way.
Thank you, Esther. How about Christianity and Christians are increasingly portrayed as bigoted and divisive in today's media. The same could be said of Muslims and Jews. As a committed Christian, do you have any suggestions about how to create more coverage of positive contributions by people of faith?
Why don't we segregate the 11 o'clock Sunday hour? And why don't we just go to somebody else's church and go into that church? I just got a call from a guy named T.L. Brown. He's a pastor here in Dallas. And I have posed that question several times because along with our neighborhoods and along with our children and our schools, the third thing we build are churches, large, big churches, Peggy. And we don't go to those churches. We just pass by them. So I asked the pastors many years ago they have all of these big meetings and they do all of this stuff. Why don't you invite the Muslims or the Church of God in Christ, all of these other religions? I tell you one thing, there's a large group of women at Sheriff Israel. And whenever I want something done, I can call on 3 groups of women. And they're in churches. And they will act if they like the cause. And I can't tell you how powerful that is. Because the first thing that happens, this is going to be funny. They want to know if I'm with a group of women, let's say they're Jewish women, and they want to know, am I Jewish? Well, no, I'm a devout, I'm a Christian. And I'm also a musician. So I play gospel music for all of my life. I'm a musician. But when you get in a group of people, they wonder who you are and what religion you are. Why is that important? So what can we do? Okay, if there are 5 churches on my street How many of those have you been in? And what can you do to be a part of the community activity that they have? For sure, they're going to have, and the only time we get together, this is, oh my gosh, I have talked about this, I've written about this. The only time we get together is at a disaster. If we have a hurricane or the river rises here in Dallas and destroys, overflows at banks, everybody comes out to help out. And we'll do that for 2 whole weeks. And then we go back to our prejuditions after it's over. I'm just always fascinated. It's not a fascinating point, but I'm always just fascinated with how we do that. And then here down here, we have a lot of tornadoes and hurricanes. We will pack up 2 train loads of goods and services and ship them to other countries. Let a tsunami happen someplace. Oh my goodness, the Baptist men are going to get together, the baseball men, everybody's going to get together, and we're going to ship this truckload, train load of stuff to wherever. But as soon as it's over, we go back to our regular humdrum life. What is wrong with that picture, Peggy? Does that answer your question?
So you're saying we should take more responsibility to educate others by interacting with other faiths and
Yes.
letting them see that we're not negative people, or that we have positive ideals and that we serve. Yeah.
I want my people here in Texas, and I've talked to several congressmen. We don't know the holidays of other cultures. So when we celebrate, let's use Christmas. When we celebrate Christmas, every faith does not have a December 21st days, but we don't publish anything to bridge that gap. So I know that Texas is getting 50,000 Ukrainians. It was announced here. So now we have another faith. I don't know what their faith is, but we have another faith coming in. And that is one sincere way. If we publish a calendar with our holidays on them, and our days that we're out of school, and our days, what are the other holidays? How much respect can we give to the other holidays? It's just a thought.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your comments, Esther.
Thank you so much for the questions. That were very good.
So I'm now going to introduce our third speaker, which is Laura Andrews Hornbeck. Laura was born and she grew up in the Dallas, Texas area. She has a BA in English from the University of North Texas, and she has worked as a teacher, public library director, and professional editor. Laura served as the Texas director of the Women's Federation for World Peace, USA, from 2001 to 2015. And from 2019 to 22, she was the communications consultant for Women's Federation International and edited that organization's 30th anniversary commemorative book. A founding member of the local chapter of Daughters of the American Revolution, she enjoys learning about history. She currently lives in the countryside near Van Alstyne, Texas, with her husband, Larry, an inventor and retired engineer for Texas Instruments. So please join me in welcoming Laura Hornbeck.
Hi, thank you, Peggy. Thank you so much for that introduction. Yeah, this is really great to be here. I was nervous about coming here. It's like such an important topic. I've always been interested in the written word medium. It's not just written, but also spoken, of course, communication. So the 2 previous speakers are so insightful, and of course, I just want to say I've known Ester Davis for many years, and I'm so grateful. I created a short little PowerPoint to share with you, so I can tell you just a little bit more about Global Women's Peace Network, which is the organization and the Women's Federation for World Peace. Let me just get the right screen here. There we go. I think. Is that good? Can you see it? Okay. So basically, thanks to this organization, the Women's Federation for World Peace and the Global Women's Peace Network, which is a project of Women's Federation, I have been able to meet people from every walk of life. And I thank this group for having brought Ester Davis into my life. Ester and I grew up in Texas, but we were like in parallel worlds. And if it, there has to be a way for people to meet and really get to know one another. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So I really give credit to Women's Federation because we, through this group, we met, and I met so many other people. So one of the key points here is that the world is calling for peace, reconciliation, compassion, love, service, and sacrifice. And this is an age in which our current problems cannot be solved by the masculine logic of power. In this age, we need to solve problems and straighten out the direction of history by the feminine logic of love. This is straight from the Women's Federation website and the founder of Women's Federation, co-founder, Dr. Hak Jahan Moon. One of the most important points that was brought up by Ms. Martindale, the whole point about the creator. Our society has lost its connections, really, and it's really pretty much thought that we can forget about where we came from, who created us, and then we can just lose our way so easily. And I see this happening in our society, American society. So Women's Federation is founded by Dr. Hak Jahan Moon and her late husband, Reverend Dr. Sun Myung Moon. And the point is, we try to be inclusive with all faiths, all people, and whether we call the creator God, Allah, we still recognize that we didn't make ourselves, we didn't choose our parents, and we didn't choose where we were born, and we really can't recreate who we are, what we look like. We can only deal with reality in the most positive way. So this is a picture, of co-founder Dr. Hak Jahan Moon. And our group, we like to talk about true love, which are the sweetest words, I love you, because through love, all life begins. But love has to be practiced with moral responsibility. And this is also a point that needs to be truly emphasized in our culture today. Love and creation, everything, sexuality, So this, the Global Women's Peace Network is a project. Women's Federation is a 501c3 organization, so it has a membership, it has dues. WFWP.us is the website here. And then Global Women's Peace Network is a project. It's a much more loosely defined project. Basically, that brings together leaders, organizations, and governments to solve pressing social issues and secure an environment for equitable human development. This picture here is from Las Vegas in 2019 when the Global Women's Peace Network was launched all across the country. And here we were in Las Vegas, and I was one of the MCs here. It was a really great, Women as the Turning Point for Peace was our theme. So these are the areas of impact for global women. I'm going to go through them. Women's leadership, family, environment. I'm just going to go back real quick. Women's leadership, a culture of peace calls for new leadership paradigms where masculine and feminine can harmonize and enhance each other's strengths and provide a place for the rise of future leaders. We strongly support harmony between male and female because this is the nature of our world. And if we can't come together in peace and love, actually, then our world cannot live in peace. So if we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. That's something that Mother Teresa said. And then we strongly support family. We emphasize family as the most fundamental and natural unit in society. Family is a place where love between husband and wife is shared. Life itself is created, core values and culture, are transmitted, and the tools necessary for citizenship in a culture of peace are provided. This needs strong emphasis. And then environment. We don't have to fight about environmentalism. We all live in this earth. The earth is our home, and it belongs to all of us collectively. It should be treated with respect and awe, and cultivated and shared with the intention to enhance, develop, and protect it for future generations. So Global Friends is a project, another aspect of Global Women. And this is on the website here, wfwp.us/GWPN. I wanted to emphasize that the website is quite extensive. We have a very good website, really. So you can go there for all information that you might want. And this I just had to include, Esther. We went together to Korea in 2019. We attended a Women's Federation event there. And Esther, we were all greeted at the airport at Incheon by this robot that comes up and talks to you and welcomes you. And it's really an amazing experience. And here we are. This was the international leader of our Women's Federation group, Dr. Lan Young Moon, and there's Angelica Selly, former Women's Federation USA president, Katerina, Connery, and Esther, and myself. So, again, this is an example of experiences that we've had because of this incredibly broad and, diverse organization. And so we had to go over to find this. We stayed at the Latte Hotel. We were roommates, and we went underground to the food court. And we found this, sort of like a shopping mall. They had so many options. We had to get a photo here in front of the Dallas barbecue restaurant. We didn't end up eating there, but it's just such a wonderful experience. So relationships are everything. We celebrate who we are as daughters and sisters, wives and mothers, aunts, friends, grandmothers. We're all leaders of heart. We have to emphasize, that's the, truly wonderful thing about this group. And this is where you go for more information. And New York is the National Office for Women's Federation and Global Women. Well, I want to thank you very much for listening, and I hope it's been, helpful for you.
Thank you, Laura. So we're getting close to the end of the hour, but if somebody has a question they would like to ask one of our panelists, you could. We still have a few minutes, so you could type it into the. I guess either into the Q&A or type it into the chat. Probably better type it into the chat. And if you want to direct it towards a certain person, please mention who that person is. I have a question for Carol. Carol, what is one important self-regulating step you'd recommend media outlets to adopt to prevent the dissemination of false news or propaganda?
Sorry, I'm not hearing you well, Peggy. Go again.
Oh, okay. What is an important self-regulating step that media outlets?
Are you guys hearing me?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we hear you, but I guess you.
Yeah, I wasn't hearing you. Probably try again. I'm sorry.
Okay. What is one? No? Okay. All right.
Okay, go again. I just heard that.
Answer that question. Esther, would you like to answer that question? What's an important self-regulating step that you'd recommend media outlets to adopt to prevent the dissemination of false news?
Oh, do your own fact checking. Do your own fact checking. And that's easy to do because we, Peggy, we still have telephones and we tend to forget that that was a very great instrument for us for 50 years.
Oh, a telephone, what is that?
So let's just you hear something, you can use all three mediums at one time. That's the one thing I love about our world today. Yeah, it's changed. It has expanded. It has this rubber band. You know, we can take it and stretch it. We can do all of these things with it. But while you're on the phone, you get this piece of news. Go to your phone and ask for a verification. Ask questions. And the first thing that's going to happen is that in that studio, let's assume it's a studio, in that studio, one of those three levels of management is going to take note. And that note is going to multiply. Then you can very, very easily go to your cell phone, go to your chat room and discuss it. Now, what have you done? You brought all this attention to one of those three levels of management that's sitting in that studio. And I can assure you, somebody is going to fact check it. So that's the one thing we can do. And I really think that Laura and I have shared so many experiences, but I think that as writers, we're both writers. As writers, people will pay attention to what we say. Writing is still a powerful, powerful tool in our mix. Books are actually, when you Google books and the publishing of books online and on your phone, they are really up. What's happening? Why are we all of a sudden going back to reading books? Because I'll tell you what, because in that book, you've got to tell where your sources are. Remember, you know, I was in college and you had to write this paper, but you also had footnotes and you had to explain where your information came from. And I love what you're doing, what you and Hans are doing right now. I can spread it later on. Can I? I mean, is it going to stay up for a minute? Hans, is it going to stay up?
Oh, yes, it'll be on Facebook, and we can send you the information where you can access it and share it with all your friends. Yes,
absolutely. So that's the world-renowned answer right there. UPF is a credible source. Women's Federation is a credible source. Women, period, are a credible source. But in any event, that's what I think we need to do.
Okay, thank you, Esther. And I'm going to turn the program back over to Hans Moyer, our RMAP coordinator for US. Hans?
Okay, yes, thank you so much, Peggy, and thank you, Laura and Esther and Carol. I think you gave us a real in-depth view of, you know, the responsibilities that go along with your role as you know, gatekeepers to your communities, to your nation, to your world, on the kind of information that is being given to the people that you're responsible for, and the kind of decisions that they can make on based on those information. So thank you so much for sharing your adventure, your incredible careers. I'm sure we would love to hear a lot more, but we are out of time at this point. And just want to say thank you to all of our audience. Thank you for joining us today.
Of Carol, just quick question. Carol, thank you so much. I really enjoyed. Thank you so much. Very informative. I would like to know if there is any association of journalists, because my international ministry in Iran, we have a couple of journalists who are incarcerated for no reason. Is there any way that we can get them free? Do you know any association, any way that we can help them? They are purely innocent just because they publish news. That's all.
Carol, you have to unmute. Carol, you have to unmute. Yeah. No, you're still muted, Carol. Sorry.
Are you
okay, there you
sorry?
Go.
Thank
okay,
you.
You're good.
Are you talking about an association here in Barbados?
Well, in America, some global association of free speech journalists, that they can help each other if in some dictatorial countries, some journalists are incarcerated.
So globally, there are always a number of associations. There's some, I don't remember the name. I'll have to get that to you guys, but there is one that looks at atrocities against journalists, if there are any arrests. We don't have to deal with that a lot in Barbados, so my report is usually very easy, thank God. But there are associations that deal with that, with you know, as it relates to journalists and their work, and those who are incarcerated, or those who actually die in the course of their own duties.
Exactly.
I don't have them to hand right now, unfortunately, but there are organizations like that.
If you find, can you give it to Hans so that he will pass it on to me?
Very
Sure,
good.
I'll definitely find one that I usually have to report to, and I have Hans's email, so I can send it to him. That's not a
Okay,
problem.
thank you.
Yes,
Also-
thank you so much.
Also, there
You're
are some
welcome.
posts in the chat. Again, thank you again, our wonderful panelists for joining us today, and we wish you all the very best. So I would just want to close by saying we wish you all a good day and good news.
Good news.
Thank you and God bless.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for having me and having all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
and
Thank
God
you for
bless. Thank
bringing
you
this
so
together.
much, Carol. Good
Bye.
job.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Esther. That was wonderful.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Esther. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
Welcome.
Take care
Thank you,
now.
Hans. Everybody, good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.